Okay, hello, class. We should be going live about now. I'm going to see if I can get a better link for you. Get ready for some streamception. Hello, class. There we go. All right, so we want to copy this. We're going to go to our announcements. We're going to provide this as a live link. Live broadcast link. And today is the 20, not the 20, not the 20, the 2017th. It is the March 2nd. All right, so hopefully this link will work better. Here, I better type a message. Here's the link for today's broadcast. All right, so hopefully this link will work better than the one I provided last time. So this way, you can actually watch with me. I guess last week's link was too long or didn't have the right things because as you can see here, it seems like it didn't even post to the announcements section. So in any case, that should be available for you. Let's go ahead and get started. What we're going to do today is we are going to look at an example informative speech. We're going to evaluate it together, um, assuming there's people watching. And then I will tell you my ratings and why. I've already filled out my little Word document with some ratings. And then we'll field any questions you have. I'll go over how to generate an APA citation works cited, which is going to be really easy because I endorse online tools and it's an online course, so it should be fairly simple for you. You don't have to buy any kind of style manual or anything. And that's going to be the thing for today. It should only be like maybe 30 to 40 minutes of viewing, if that. So, with that said, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to have to turn off the display for just a second. It's going to turn black on you. Don't worry about it for a second. Um, I'm going to go. No. What am I doing? I'm going to go ahead and remove this thing from your view for a second. I want to bring up this student's web page. I have their they have permission, or we have permission to use her speech, but I don't want to reveal her name. So we're going to go ahead and there we go. We're going to go ahead and get the display capture back. Okay, excellent, and we should be back. Okay, so here we go. Let's go ahead and just watch the speech. If you want to follow along with me, I am going to be using the instructor's evaluation form on page 129 or around there. There are multiple copies of this form, so I encourage you to follow along, take notes yourself on one of these instructor's evaluation form informative speech. Again, it's an instructor's evaluation form, not the peer evaluation form. We'll deal with that later. All right, so with that said, let's go ahead and get started.
Kim is a vivacious 17-year-old girl who is going to Paris for the first time with her best friend Amanda. The excitement that these two feel is absolutely contagious, and they have only one plan: have fun. Upon arriving at Paris, they meet a very handsome Parisian man who introduces himself as Philippe. He offers to give the two a ride to their hotel, and they both eagerly agree. After arriving at their destination, he invites them to a party later that night and tells both of them he wants to know what room number they're in, so that way he knows where to pick them up later that night. Amanda gives him the information without a moment's hesitation, and then both of the girls rush upstairs to prepare for a night that neither of them will ever forget. Hours later, their room is broken into, and both of the girls are kidnapped, thus beginning a terrifying journey for Kim, who is prized most for her purity. I'm sure many of you have seen the movie Taken, and if so, knows what happens over the course of the hour and a half. Taken is not based on a true story, but it is based on real-life events. Human trafficking happens all over the world, and millions of people are kidnapped or sold into slavery every year. I am going to tell you about human trafficking and the statistics of this fast growing criminal industry. Human trafficking is very common, especially in countries with harsh economic problems. When I was a girl, we used to live in Germany, and my dad did several mission trips to the Czech Republic. On one of these trips, he happened to see that there were pink and blue curtains on several of the windows in a street. He innocently asked the driver if this was a way for the parents to let people know that they had a boy or a girl. The driver answered, "Well, yes." This was a way for customers to decide whether they wanted a boy or a girl for the night. These parents were, in a sense, pimping their children out. Many people actually defended these parents, stating that this was the best way to keep a family together. The statistics of human trafficking are absolutely overwhelming. 40 million people are kidnapped or sold into one form of slavery or another. 80% are female, 50% are children, and 85% of them all are sold as sex slaves. The U.S. has more cases of human trafficking now than any other time in history. It is estimated through humantrafficking.org that between 14,500 and 17,500 people are brought into the U.S. through human trafficking every year. There is a high demand for domestic service, construction work, sweatshops, and agriculture. It is estimated by ecpat.net that the average age of entry into street prostitution here in the United States is between 12 and 14 years of age. There have been cases of girls as young as 9. Many of these girls find themselves in this situation only after running away from home and putting their trust in someone who then manipulates them into selling their body as a way to pay back all the love and devotion this person has poured over them. Human trafficking can also involve infant kidnapping for the sole purpose of selling that child as an orphan. This is known as child laundering. It's extremely common in Asian countries, which is why Vietnam has now closed off all its adoption processes to American families. American families are their highest consumers, which then causes many of these people to kidnap infants to get the money that they would if these children weren't orphans. There are several websites that give information and help for people who are associated with human trafficking. Humantrafficking.org gives information on how to prevent human trafficking, how to rescue or escape if you find yourself in that situation, how to prosecute an offender, and how you can provide rehabilitation for a victim. In a world that is so advanced and has an air of civility, we live in one of the world's worst eras of slavery. Many of us are either none the wiser or choose to look the other way. I hope that after hearing a fraction of what goes on behind the scenes of human trafficking, many of you will choose to either take a stand and help those who help themselves, or just even inform other people of what is going on with this ugly, ugly criminal industry.
Okay, so that is our informative speech example. I'm going to go ahead and turn the projector off just a second, and then we'll be back again. We have permission to use this speech, but I don't want to reveal the student's name. Okay, so now that we have our stuff back, let's bring up Word, and let's go ahead and talk about how I was rated this speech. Okay, yeah. Yep. Okay, good. Your image should be returned. Okay, so here's what I felt about her speech. I'm just going to go down the list. The first item on your instructor's evaluation form um, is called preparation outline with reference list and speaking notes. Obviously, you've turned in your outline, and you'll have your reference lists after I kind of go over that. But if you turn those in, that's 10 points in that category on their own. Next, and so we just assume that student turned hers in. I think the actual first category we'll talk about is the introduction. Um, Now, I thought her introduction was pretty good. She used a popular movie that touched upon the theme of the speech. Um, and I was kind of interested to see if she was going to talk about the movie. And then she actually made the speech into something else, which was related to it. So I felt that was a pretty cool way to build my interest. I had not seen Taken, and she had described the plot of the movie. That was pretty cool, and the fact that she connected it to a real phenomenon, I thought was pretty artful. So I give her really good props for that method of of gaining attention. Her thesis was stated clearly. I think she told us that she was going to go ahead and talk about human trafficking. Now, here's the problem where I felt that she could have lost points or did lose points. Did she preview all the main points of the speech? And she did not. She didn't quite use the method that we had talked about in our class this semester. So I would subtract points from that because she didn't have a preview of all the main points. She didn't say something like today in today's speech I'm going to cover this about human trafficking, that about human trafficking, and the other thing about human trafficking. She didn't do that, so I would take off points there. Um, and I feel that there was a smooth transition to the body of her speech. So overall rating, I probably would have given her a solid B rating for that. So I put 8.5 out of 10. And it's not at 8.5 out of 10 because I just now, as I was doing this, it's out of 15. So I would probably maintain the B average with, gosh, what is a good B average? I think that's a B average, isn't it? Um, so I would take off a few points for that, maybe 2.5 points for that mistake there. The next part is the main body, which is out of 25 points. I did feel that her main points were clearly stated. It was pretty clear that she was moving on to new ideas. It was also pretty clear that she had support for those ideas. She cited her sources appropriately with author, publication, and date. I did notice, however, that on one of her citations she missed the date. Now, I wouldn't take off points for one mistake, especially when the rest of her citations were pretty good, because I'm not that persnickety. But if you don't have the date, and this is a pretty common mistake, I'm gonna go ahead and underline and bold that and italicize it. Um, that sometimes students will forget dates for their sources throughout their presentation. You really do need to keep your citation phrase something like, um, according to John Smith, writing in Time magazine on in their November 2016 issue, right? Have all of those elements in there. Even if it might seem clunky to have the date, you got to put it in there so that people know how recent your information is. It is important for audiences to be able to evaluate how recent your topic is. Um, so go ahead and please do that. But for one mistake, I didn't take off any points. She did a pretty good job in her body, 25 out of 25 there. Her transitions, was it clear she was moving on to new main points? She did use something we call signposting, in which she might say first or next or moving on or something like that. However, she didn't quite use the didactic method that we talked about in class again. Um, she did not use internal summaries and previews. She didn't say things like, now that we've talked about how Vietnam has shut down their pipeline to American parents over concerns of human trafficking, we'll now talk about whatever the next point was. Right? She didn't do that. She just kind of said next or also or some kind of. She did have a transitionary signpost like next or first or whatever, but she didn't have the internal summaries and previews. So I only gave her partial credit for that. I gave her 5 out of 15. And the reason why it's so low is because I figure that there's three parts, right? A transition, and internal summary and preview. She only did one of the three things, so she gets a third of those points. So that's kind of my philosophy on that. Her conclusion, I think, reinforced her main points, and she did include effectively. Um, so I feel like she got full points for that. Her delivery was pretty good. She had a pretty even tone that was appropriate for the context, or rather, the type of speech she was doing. Human trafficking is not a fun, silly willy subject, and she did a good job of sounding reserved during her speech. So I went ahead and I gave her full points for delivery. I also noticed that she um, had obvious preparation. I could tell that she was reading from things off the screen at times, and I felt that was pretty good. Um, and we talked about that. Some miscellaneous stuff. I also chose this particular example because she did incorporate a visual aid. As you can see, there was a computer monitor behind her. It looks like she was in an office of some kind. Um, However, um, the visual aid was pretty good. The monitor was somewhat clear and easy to see. I mean, this is a online course. We're using webcams of limited resolution. We're not expecting production level quality stuff here. So she got, if we required visual aids, she would have gotten full credit for that, I think, except for one thing. There was an inconsistency between the visual aid and what was spoken. On one of her slides, I could clearly see that it said 4 million people are human trafficked or sold into sex slavery, and she clearly said 40 million people. And I'm not sure which one is the more accurate one because of this inconsistency. So if we were really evaluating you based on your visual aid, that would have been worth points taken off. But again, it's not part of this rubric. But I did want to point out that she did make a mistake with her visual aid. Um, so that could have been some points lost there if we had that on the rubric somewhere. But it's not, so good for her. I would say her final rating. Of course, I made these calculations based on the previous mistake I made out of the 15, but we only took off about 11 or so points. And now I guess it's 12 or so points. So um, her final rating would have been a B plus grade out of 100. All right, and the assignment is worth out of 100 points. So I feel like it was a great speech. It wasn't perfect. Again, where she really lost bonanzas of points was that she didn't attempt to do the transitions like we mentioned in class, and she did lose a couple points for previewing the main speech, but otherwise her introduction was pretty great. So that's an example of a solid B plus type speech. And again, if you want to make sure you get that A, I would make sure that you use the transition, internal summaries, internal previews method that we use in class. Have this grade sheet open when you start doing your speech, so that you can kind of see the components of what we're looking for there. Again, she was really only missing those internal summaries and previews. Um, but again, there are three things you need to do for a transition, and one of them is to have a signpost. The other one is to use these internal summaries and previews, and she didn't do the last two parts of the three-step model, so she only got a third of the points there. Um, so that is what I would rate for this speech. It doesn't look like I have many viewers. I'm not maybe going to wait to see if you will respond, but what would you rate her speech as if you were the instructor? Is a good question to ask. If you got a grade or a grade-ish around my range, then I guess we're on the same page. And if it's radically different, please say something in chat, and we can dialogue about it further. Um, but with only 3 viewers, and I think 2 of them are actually myself because of the various windows I have open, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next part of the broadcast, and we'll revisit this if I see a comment in the chat. All right. So, I went a little bit ahead of myself. So, how do we do APA citations? And like I said, I endorse online tools, and I endorse doing things the easier way than buying a $60 manual. So, I like to use the resource called bibme.org. Um, I'll have this in the post broadcast wrap up announcement, but it's simply bibme.org. Um, and here I'll type it in new so we go right to the web page there. And it's a nice little tool that we can use to automatically create these citations. And we'll do a sample one, and I'll show you how to incorporate it in a second here. So we're going to be using APA for the American Psychological Association style. So we click on that. And now it has a couple of cool features. It says autofill mode. So for example, I could try to look up our um, textbook here, Introduction to Public Communication. I'm just curious if they have it. I haven't done this search before. It doesn't seem like they do. Um, there's something maybe blocking my search here. I always have these. Sorry, no results found. Try again. Okay, so sometimes you can try to get around this by going to like the author's name. I'm pretty sure Nitsovic is a very uncommon author name. So nope, he's not in here. Well, rats. However, um, there is a manual entry mode, and so let's go ahead and do that. And let's go ahead and make up a book too. It also works for websites, which is probably the most common one. So let's make up a website. I take that back. So online, we have an article title. Um, how I'm going to make it up here. How to do bib me good. If no article title is provided, use the website title instead. So up here you can see that at least on Firefox there is a web page or web window title up here um, that you can use. It only shows the full one. There is a way to get it to show the full one. Of course, I wasn't really thinking about having to do this. But anyway, you could say bid me auto generate APA website citations, um, and that's what it is because we can see it in the URL here. But anyway, so if it has an author, let's say that this one does, we'll go ahead and credit myself with it, and we start with the first name, middle initial, and then last name, any suffix. And I'm not a junior or anything. Um, and if you have two authors, you can hit the plus, add another contributor, and it will add a new blank. But we'll go ahead and just keep it at one. Let's go ahead and put in our site, our URL here. Um, Electronically published. Sometimes we've got to look around for the information like the copyright. So it looks like it was first published in 2007, 2017. So we'll go ahead with the more recent one. We don't know what day it is, but we know it is March. And we don't know. Actually, we don't know the date, but we do know the year. It was 2017, and the date accessed is today. So that is 2 of March, and the year is 2017. And there's no reason to add an annotation because we're not doing that kind of a project. Let's go ahead and create the citation. And boom, there it is. Now, um, this is all properly in APA format, kind of. Um, the way we can make sure that it's absolutely positively correct is we can do what we call it. I recommend that you download to Word. So what we would do if this was a real project, we would add another citation to your bibliography. It would take us here. Your bibliography has one citation in it. We keep adding, and then finally we click on this button here, and it would show us all of our entries in alphabetical order. We don't have to do anything special with it. But anyway, once you're done, I would just say download to Word. Let's go ahead and do that now. You would have to register an account. I'm not going to do that right now, but you can download it to Word. I recommend that. Oh my goodness, almost ruined my example there. Um, one thing you can do is also do copy and paste, and then we'll put it in our Word document. Um, Let's go ahead and just slap it at the end here, and there it is. Now, something is not quite right here. It doesn't do the formatting properly when you do copy and paste. As you may know, when you um, do any kind of works cited, you have to indent the second line. And the reason why you do that is because you want the names to pop out. All right. The other information is not as important as the author name. That's why you indent the second line so that when someone's scanning your bibliography or your works cited page, you have the last names pop out. It's just what scholars use to just do a quick scan of your resources, and it's really helpful for us. to see if you have the right number of sources by seeing how many indentations you've got. But anyway, that is how you make sure that you can do a great APA citation. Just remember that if it has a second line, you need to hit, and for this one, I hit enter, and then it didn't really do anything visually, but then I hit tab and it worked. Um, so go ahead and make sure that that's right. You only, um, and that way it will make sure that you have the correct spacing and indentations. All right, and that's pretty much it, folks. I really don't see anyone responding in chat, so it was a great little short video. We're only gone 25 minutes. That's awesome. Be sure you do watch the video. I mean, I guess it doesn't make sense for me to say this now at the end, but if you have any questions, please let me know. Oh, important, mucho important side note here. It is going to be spring break starting on Friday, and as you know, um, when we're on spring break, classes are not in session, so there will not be a broadcast next week. What this does mean, though, is that you get about an extra week to record your informative speeches and make sure they are submitted. Um, and I'm going to go ahead and have your informative speeches be due. I'm going to create an assignment link with this information. Let's just do that now, actually. Let's go ahead and go back to my Blackboard here for a second. We're going to create an assignment link in front of you, so you have this information that's handy dandy and available. So let's go to course content, assessments, assignment, and name is informative speech file or link. And okay, use this to turn in YouTube to link or file to be a .mp4 file to submit your informative speech. Speech by, let's see, what will it be? Gotta open up my calendar. I'm not good at, so let's have this do, so this is spring break in here. It'll be due Thursday the 16th. By March 16th, 2017 by the end of the day. So that's 11:59 p.m. Let's go ahead and do that here, and the time will be end of day. Okay, points possible is out of 100 points. Okay, no problem. Uh, Cast Stuffle. I think yeah, you might be Corey. I think. But in any case, that's when your speech will be due. So you've got 2 weeks to record this thing and get it right. Again, you don't have to do a visual aid, um, and I will give you a reminder in an announcement here after the broadcast. But unless there are any questions, I think I'll go ahead and sign out. One of our shortest videos ever. Excellent. I hope this was useful for you. Hope you can see my grading philosophy just a little bit and what I'm emphasizing in terms of grading. Again, the big things. If you add them all up, the introduction, the transitions, and the conclusion are worth 30 points, and your body/information is quote unquote only worth 25. So the emphasis is on the organizational mechanics in this speech for sure. Um, so make sure if you do a good job on those things, the way that we kind of did the outline in class, you should be walking away with at least a B plus range grade for the speech. So, right, any questions? My cursor around just so you know that I'm here. Oh, that's a great question, Natalie. Um, Here's what we're going to do for that. I'm going to answer your question right now. Um, Informative speech, works cited. We're going to just create a separate assignment for that. You're right. I told you that we should do it all at the same time, but then we didn't have my broadcast at the proper time. So tell you what, let's go ahead and let's make that due Monday at the end of the day. And it's a separate thing. If you want to resubmit the whole thing, I don't mind. We'll make it still part of the same 10 points. Or actually, you know what? We're going to just cheat the system just a little bit. Put in 0 points. It's going to be part of your preparation grade on the rubric. Okay, so don't panic. It's not extra credit, and it's not worth nothing. It's just part of your preparation grade on the rubric. And we're going to go ahead and make that just a separate assignment with a separate due date of March 6th. Um, Here, I need to edit that text so that we can see that it's due on March 6th. Please submit a new APA works cited if you need to by March 6th, 11:59 p.m. All right, so that way you have some time to get it together. And I mean that when I say you get it together, I mean plural you, everybody that's watching this video right now. So that way we don't get things kind of mixed up there, um, and you have some time to do it without like generating a late assignment. And like I said, if you just want to go ahead and just tack the new citation to the end of your outline, that is fine. Um, that way I can kind of keep this straight. Darn, that power outage really messed me up. All right. Not a problem, Natalie. Speaking of questions, one of the most common questions I received, and I can't go into the grade center and show you, of course, because that would show you everybody's information because I'm the instructor. But if you check your grade center, you should see grades for everything you've submitted up to this point, which I guess is only the intro speech now that I'm thinking about it. But you should have a grade for your intro speech, and the thing I haven't graded yet is your outline. So, um, or any of these other things that I just added today. So there would be some items on there, but you should be up to date. Going into midterms, you should know what grade you have. Which again, if you turned in your introduction speech and you answered the 3 questions, you should have gotten full credit for that. I wasn't really putting the screws to it because it's not really an assignment for speech mechanics. It was more about getting you familiar with the speaking technology. All right. I think that might be the only question that we've got. So I'm going to go ahead and just say one more time, are there any questions out there? My cursor around so people know I'm still here. All right, it doesn't seem so. I waited about 90 seconds. So thanks again, everybody. If you have questions, go ahead and email me. Again, next week, there's not going to be broadcast. I will be reachable by email. Um, Once again, the debate team has a debate tournament on the weekend. So if you email me actually, we're going to be leaving on Thursday afternoon. So if you email me on Thursday afternoon next week, I will probably not respond to you until Monday the following week. Um, but I will be reachable via email all of this weekend and all of well until Thursday afternoon the following week. So. If you have any questions, please do let me know. I hope I'm all caught up on my email correspondence. If that's not true, go ahead and send me another email so that I can see it again. Um, I do receive quite a few emails a day, and not necessarily from this class. So sometimes things, especially if they're like one-liner questions, they might get buried somehow. Um, but I feel like I'm all caught up, so hopefully you are too. Thanks again for watching. I really appreciate it. I see I just got a new viewer, but we're kind of wrapping things up. Go ahead and see the archive for information or send me an email if you have a question. I'll see you all later. Thanks for watching.